Good Monday evening, and welcome to another episode of The Political Chick. Thank you so much for tuning in this Monday evening, and welcome to another Monday night. If you have any questions, or if you want to give us a call, give us a shout. 877-CHAT-212 at any time, 877-CHAT-212. You can also follow The Political Chick on Twitter at Political Chick 1. Yes, there's another Political Chick out there, so sorry, I'm Political Chick 1. But anyway, tonight's episode is going to focus on security, national security, and how it's affected from events that are taking place around the world. Well, tonight, Ryan Mauro is going to join us. He's been on the program before. He's the founder of WorldThreats.com, and he's also the National Security Advisor of the Christian Action Network and intelligence analyst for the Asymmetric Warfare and Intelligence Center. He's previously joined the program, like I said, but this time around, he's going to be telling us how the events of BP are affecting the United States in as far as national security, if at all. Also, he's going to be telling us about Israel's whole situation, what a mess it is turning out to be for the United States as well, and how do we fit in there? What is our role in that whole issue that took place with the flotilla ship conflict? Next up, David Kaiser is going to be joining the program. You might have received his email. It was a chain about how he was comparing President Obama with the Adolf Hitler, and as it turns out, well, that email was a hoax. However, he does have a lot of opinions, and David Kaiser is indeed, the one thing they did get it right, an international and domestic policy historian. He's also a professor of strategy and policy at the Naval War College. He's going to be talking to us about three major things that are on the docket for President Obama. What he needs to address right now. It's Afghanistan, it's the oil crisis, and it's the economy. None of those topics are a small topic, and he's going to talk about which one is the most important and which one needs to be evaluated. He's going to run through all of them. As we know, the consumers aren't holding up as well as everybody thought in the economy. Expectations for the consumer spending index actually went down by 1.2%, or actually in reality, it was off 1.2%. But expectations for that, it was actually going to be bumped up by 0.2%, and it wasn't. In fact, we just went dipping into negative territory. Well, does this mean that the consumers are actually just spending a little bit better and more wisely, or do we still not see enough jobs being produced out there so the spending can't even happen? He's going to talk to us all about it. Again, that's David Kaiser. And then we're going to turn the focus on to the United States and the environment. Well, of course, it's a great time to bring that up with BP on the forefront. But Naomi Oreskes, the author of Merchants of Doubt, is going to join us. She is going to be taking a toll on the conversation of all the scientists who are fighting scientists. She's going to break down what's been happening in their own community of scientists and research, and tell us why, yes, indeed, global warming is actually happening. She says all of these arguments have had similarities. That is the tobacco industry, the acid rain argument, and now global warming. And she's going to tell us why, indeed, all of them are true. But when scientists step into the picture to cast doubt, hence the title of her book, Merchants of Doubt, that's when it gets a little fuzzy. Maybe they have a point, maybe they don't. She's going to tell us all about it. Well, welcome to the show, Ryan Mauro. Again, he is the founder of WorldThreats.com, again, National Security Advisor of the Christian Action Network. Ryan, welcome back to The Political Chick.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you so much for coming back. All right, so can you give us a little overview of what's happening in Israel with the Gaza flotilla conflict? Why did they execute the assault? And do you agree with the criticism that the media is saying that it was a military and political disaster?
No, I actually wrote a blog that I said the media's coverage of the whole flotilla incident made me want to smash my face with a hammer. and that's because it is just so off. There are very few things in the world that are black and white, but this is one of them. Israel was absolutely right. The group that owned that specific ship, there were 6 ships, and 5 of them they boarded peacefully because they, of course, have to inspect these ships to make sure weapons aren't being transferred to Hamas. That makes sense. But the one ship that the clash occurred on was owned by a group called the IHH, which is an Islamist group that is really a front for Hamas in Turkey. And they planned this attack. The ship's captain has testified that he found the 40 members of IHH aboard that ship trying to make weapons, gathering knives, in the lead up to the raid. So this was an ambush, pure and simple.
And actually, Ryan, it was very interesting to see in very few papers the actual pictures of the arsenal of weapons that they had actually discovered in there. Yet, you know, when you read the story in the New York Times or you see it on MSNBC, it was, oh, bad Israel, look what they did.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, they wisely didn't bring guns aboard, apparently, although the Israelis think that they might have thrown guns overboard because they did find gun cartridges, they found sights, they found military uniforms, and they did record gunfire. So it's possible they had guns on board. But this was not really designed so much to be a weapons shipment, so much as to be an incident that would weaken the blockade on Gaza, where Hamas has power. And the precedent came for this actually in Egypt, where another group called Viva Palestina, which is another front for Hamas, or at least connected to Hamas, was sending a convoy through Egypt, and Egypt said, oh, if you want to send humanitarian aid to Gaza, that's fine, but you have to go through this one port because of security measures. And the group said, absolutely not, we're going the way that we want to, and so the Egyptians stopped them, and then fighting broke out, very similar to what happened in Israel. And as a result, there were protests throughout the Muslim world that pressured the Egyptian government, and then the Egyptians said, okay, you can bring 158 trucks in, and that weakened the blockade. And so I think that you can trace the origins of this incident back to when Egypt backed down during that pressure.
Very interesting, and yet this is a regular protocol that was followed correctly, you're saying, by Israel, yes?
Oh, yeah, more humanitarian aid enters Gaza through Israel with their permission and their guidance on a weekly basis than what this entire flotilla was carrying.
Okay, so you have absolutely no problem with what transpired, yes?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and even in the execution of the attack, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Has anything transpired out of the investigation of the probe? I know that they had actually started one themselves about whether this was executed correctly, and I haven't heard much about the probe. Have you?
Yeah, I have a little bit. Basically what they're finding out is that the IHH members are more and more connected to terrorism, even more than I think the Israelis thought, even including Al-Qaeda. And really, the only fault on the Israeli part is that some of the soldiers that were used to raid this ship, or actually raid is an improper term, to try to inspect the ship and then were ambushed, only had paintball guns on them. Because Israel goes to really great lengths, even though you don't hear about it, to make sure that there's not bloodshed, even with people that are devoted to their destruction, like this group was.
Okay, can we turn the tables to Turkey? How does Turkey fit into this situation? And you say that you have a bright spot on your blog as to why things are looking a little bit better. They were pretty outspoken about being anti-Western, and now it seems as though there is a little turn of the tables. Can you explain?
Sure. Well, the ruling government of Turkey right now is profoundly Islamist. They are in the camp of Iran and Syria. There's absolutely no hope for turning that government around right now. But the bright spot is next July, when there's new general elections there, and the opposition, if they get their act together, could trim the wings of the ruling party by reducing their majority in parliament, perhaps even defeating them, as one Israeli analyst actually predicts will happen. And so that's the bright spot. And the bright spot really is that the main opposition leader in Turkey is actually criticizing Erdogan, the prime minister there, for putting Turkey away from the pro-Western axis. So you're seeing a certain level of backlash. The Turkish public as a whole is still anti-American. They still like Erdogan. But the process is beginning where that's going to start to change, I think, because the Turkish people still value their democracy.
So this is the opposition party that is actually criticizing Erdogan, yes?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this isn't an entirely fair comparison, but in terms of approval ratings, look at how President Obama was extremely popular at one point, and then the opposition started going after him, and then bit by bit, the approval rating drops. And so I think you're going to see that same process happen now in Turkey.
Well, Ryan, you know, I think the moral of that story, wherever you are on whatever aspect of this globe, is that you just can't operate like a dictator if you're in the democracy, and if you are, you need to just kind of find some type of balance between the opposition party, whichever side you're on, and the party that you're on, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that's the beauty of democracy, is that, to a degree, these things are cyclical. I mean, if you have Democrats in power for 8 years, the public naturally are going to want a Republican. And I think that as long as we can make sure the pillars of democracy remain in Turkey, and we don't allow the ruling Islamist government to subvert that, I think that we can preserve that cyclical nature of the democracy, and then naturally, over time, the opposition will be able to gain more power.